So one of the things that we had to deal with was the idea that who is going to do the accounting for the company, right? Who is going to...
The graphic design.
I mean, we still haven't solved who's supposed to take out the garbage in our office, but that's a separate issue. But,
yeah.
but you know, any utopian society, that's what it all comes down to, right? But the idea of, you know, how are we going to learn these skills? So we were constantly having to come up with new and original ways to solve, like, the accounting problem. And some of them worked great and continue to be our solutions as an artist-run collective, and some of them were disastrous and had to be thrown out.
Right.
But we had, in the summer of 2001, put together a basic business plan, for lack of a better word, and done an initial set of fundraisers that had raised, surprisingly, almost $30,000, and which was enough for us to get started, work full-time with pay.
So we were gearing up for our first day on payroll to be September 11th, 2001.
That was our first day of work.
So that was our first day of work, and so that was a really interesting way to begin. It was a really interesting way to begin, but what it did was, it did a couple of things, well, just to us, we'll not talk about the larger questions, but it, of course, there were certain things that happened, our, you know, fundraising and all sorts of things were sort of frozen for a little bit. But what happened is our response, because we believe that theater is a way to bring about social change and open up civic dialogue, we immediately called an emergency meeting amongst the teaching artists we knew from all of the theaters that we had worked with, and called a meeting on Wednesday night, the 12th.
Yeah, the 12th.
And we sat in our office, our new office, and brainstormed lesson plan ideas, and then Thursday morning called every principal in town that we knew and went into the schools and volunteered our services to work with young people in response, because some of these, and remember, these students were 2 weeks into a new year, they didn't know each other. I was working in the, you know, in several junior highs in Queens that saw it happen, and so we went in the schools, and then as a result of our staying true to our mission and working right immediately in response to 9/11, we got a New York Times article, and we received funding from this newly created School Arts Rescue Initiative that brought us into more schools, that actually paid us to do the work, and started many of our very first partnerships in Morris High School in the Bronx, et cetera, came from the funding from the School Arts Rescue Initiative.
Because we were brought into schools that were extremely needy. I mean, there was a sort of a bridge that was built when the money started flowing in for young people who had been directly affected by 9/11, that bridged into, because of the particular foundation sources that were paying for it, just basic needy schools that desperately needed more support, that had, you know, terrible arts education programs, terrible civic education programs. So by the end of our first year, 9 of us were now 6 of us. 3 were gone. In fact, that was actually 2 of them left within about a month after 9/11.
Because I think, and this is interesting when you go into your own business, 3 of them left very amicably, one of which was an Oberlin alum. Because I think ultimately they couldn't quite let go of the idea of being picked.
Yeah.
As an artist, of I want to get cast.
If you're picking yourself,
someone,
then are you the right authority to pick you? I mean, do you really know who
really
the best actor is,
you know?
And is it you? You know, shouldn't someone else tell you that?
And my parents, like, for example, my parents always loved it when I would say, you know, 500 people auditioned for this film and I got it, or like, you know, it's like there's that sense of wanting to be picked, and we. You know, that didn't really interest us.
At the end of the first year, just to give you just how we got to where we are now, at the end of the first year, it was about a $275,000 budget. There were 6 of us instead of 9. We had produced a major hit off-Broadway, very surprising hit. In fact, we almost didn't do this, what became a big hit, because we just didn't have the money. But we sort of dug deep, figured it out, and put together a season that had really reached a lot of different constituencies and ultimately had a lot of great press coming out of it. Our second season was an absolute disaster. Everything fell apart. Financially, we were in a constant state of turmoil. Right. The idea of an artist collective was severely tested because we realized that actually all people don't think alike.
We had a crazy person in our company that we discovered was crazy.
Yeah, we
in
had
our
a lunatic who we had to sort that through. He didn't seem like a lunatic, but he was.
It turned out he was.
And You know, deep differences emerged with someone who's not here today, who is still one of the fundamental people who's driving Epic, is Zach Berkman, who's
in my
OC
class,
93,
yeah.
Melissa's class. And there
We
were
met
some
acting 100 first class. Yeah.
fundamental differences between what we all what we meant by the theater is a place where we catalyze social change. What exactly do we mean by that? And the second season that was a big problem. But by the third season, we had gone now
But that
from 9
said, the
to
second
6.
season had some things in it.
Yeah.
Like we did this
Some phenomenal
crazy
stuff.
project which almost killed us, which was phenomenal, called the Antigone Congress, where we brought together, we do programs that use classic plays as the beginning place for exploration of social questions, and we bring our company into schools and perform plays like Antigone for them, and they create their own adaptation of the play that's ultimately performed for their community. And it's like often casts of like 100 people on stage. It's quite something. So we brought representatives from 8 of our partner schools all over New York City to come together, a group of about 35 students, to work with our professional artists to create a new play based on Antigone using a congressional model of theater making, which we
Where
made
people
up.
voted on scenes.
And it was incredible. We met at NYU on Saturdays, and we created this thing, and we performed it off Broadway. It was free, and we thought, oh, we'll just do it. We don't have the money, and we'll get all this press. And we
Didn't make a dime.
But it was a phenomenal event, and it really shaped us as artists and thinkers and educators.
And then by the third year, I think just to kind of wrap up with where we got, by the third year we'd gone now from 9 people to 6 people to 4 people, right? And this theater was still growing. We were still expanding our budget, almost double each year. So those 4 people, myself, Melissa, Zach, and another person named James Wallert, had gotten to the place where we kind of knew how to operate, and we put all of our attention on one production at a time. We did Kate Fodor, OC 93's Hannah and Martin, which is still it was a major, major milestone in plays about philosophy. It was a play about Martin Heidegger and Hannah Arendt, and extremely political play that kind of put us over the hump, put us into a place where people knew who we were. The actor David Strathairn was the lead with Melissa. It was always funny because Melissa's name starts with an F and David Strathairn starts with an S. I don't know if you know David, but he's the guy from Good Night and Good Luck. He's the actor who played Edward R. Murrow. Very famous film actor. Great guy, real activist. But all the newspaper articles would be, and now on our board, all the newspaper articles would say, Friedman and Strathairn are Hannah and Martin off Broadway. So that was Melissa's sort of rise into stellar Strathairn-like fame. But anyway, so as we began, we really sculpted a way of working that focuses on each project and builds relationships with constituencies out of every project that we do.
And we developed new things that year. By focusing on it, we pioneered a way of rehearsing our off-Broadway programs in some of our partner schools. So we brought Hannah and Martin for a day to the South Bronx to Morris High School and rehearsed and worked with students as assistant directors on an authentic day of rehearsal. It was very real. And
it was very real.
It was very real. No, I mean, it wasn't like us staging, like this is rehearsal. We were really, getting feedback, and the feedback that they gave us and the direction they gave us affected the production, so that when they saw it, ultimately they saw, oh, I helped sculpt that moment on stage.